Okay, everyone kindly repeat after me. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Jaya Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Gana.
Jaya Jaya Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Gana.
Shakti Deha Kaurayena Chaitanya Varnana.
Shakti Deha Kaurayena Chaitanya Varnana.
Jaya Jaya Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Gana.
Jaya Jaya Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Gana.
Shakti Deha Kaurayena Chaitanya Varnana.
Shakti Deha Kaurayena Chaitanya Varnana.
So Hare Krishna. So last time we were discussing the purport to text number 41. So we'll chant verse number 41 and hopefully by the grace of Guru and Krishna we will get through this verse. It has a 19-page purport and some interesting questions were asked on it. Even yesterday one question came that, why are we studying all these arguments by Shankaracharya? So we are studying them because they're presented in the purport. And the reason why we're studying them is that Prabhupada gives a very good argument against the arguments presented by Shankaracharya. And it's good to understand what Prabhupada is saying and why he's saying what he's saying. So let us recite this verse, text number 41. Vasudeva Sankarshana Pradyumna Nirudha.
Vasudeva Sankarshana Pradyumna Nirudha.
Duitiya Chatura Vyuha Eiturya Vishuddha.
Dvitiya Chatura Vyuha Eiturya Vishuddha.
So Vasudev, Sankarshan, Pradyumna and Aniruddha constitute this second quadruple expansion. They are purely transcendental. Eiturya Vishuddha. So they are transcendental and free from all material contamination. So I sent you a little WhatsApp message on the group. So if you see, this is, I don't know, it's not like so readable unless you expand on it.
The photo or the
No, the handwritten. So I wanted to make this on PowerPoint, but I didn't get the time, so I just did it by hand today. But this gives you a good idea of the structure, Godhead structure. So if you see the flow, Krishna expands himself into Lord Balaram. Balaram is Krishna himself, right? He's his second body. And from Balaramji, and this is why this is important to understand, because this chapter is called The Glories of Lord Nityananda Balaram. And when we study this structure, we see that practically all these expansions of the Lord, they're coming from Lord Balaram. So Balaram, he expands himself into Vasudev, and then from Vasudev comes Sankarshan, Pradyumna, Aniruddha. Right? So from Vasudev comes Sankarshan, from Sankarshan comes Pradyumna, and from Pradyumna comes Aniruddha. You can see the arrows.
हाँ, लेकिन प्रभु जी आपने बलराम जी का ऐसे दोनों कर दिया है, लेकिन बलराम जी से सिर्फ वासुदेव आ रहे हैं,
Yes,
फिर आगे बढ़ रहे हैं.
yes. So it has to be fine-tuned a little bit. So you just follow the arrow, basically, and then from Sankarshan comes Narayan. And from Lord Narayan comes the second Chaturvyuha, second set of Chaturvyuha, that they reside in the Vaikuntha planets. The first set, or the first quadruple expansion, they are in Krishna Loka. So you can see on the left I've written Krishna Loka, and then below I've written Vaikuntha. And then from Mahasankarshan comes Karanadakshay Vishnu. And from Karanadakshay Vishnu comes Garbhodakshay Vishnu. And then from Garbhodakshay Vishnu comes Shirodakshay Vishnu. Okay.
जो सेकेंड क्वाड्रुपल है प्रभु जी, जैसे आपने फर्स्ट वाले में यू हैव मेंशन्ड एज एरो कि वासुदेव से संकर्षण इज कमिंग एंड देन प्रद्युम्न. इन सेकंड क्वाड्रुपल द सेम थिंग इज हैपनिंग.
Yes, the same, yes.
द एरो शुड बी देयर ना, ऐसे ऐसे करके हम.
Yeah, so I just put arrow because it's assumed that it's the same, it's a repeat. So anyway, this I just did right before the session because I couldn't do it on, so I just did it just so that it's easier to explain when you have some visual to help you explain. But I'll fine tune this, I'll put the arrows properly and the markings. So this is just a rough drawing. Okay? But it gives you some sense of, huh? Yes. Yeah, so I thought like, now, in this purport to this chapter, to this verse, Prabhupada writes a lot of detailed explanations. And his whole objective in this purport is to refute all the arguments that Shankaracharya has put to demonstrate that this Chaturvyuha is actually material. Right? It's not transcendental. So his basic argument is what? Like if you were to put his argument in one line, Shankaracharya's argument, that this Chaturvyuha is material. They're not transcendental entities. And he puts forth a few arguments. It says Sutra 42, 43, 44 and 45. So 4 arguments he puts. So we'll quickly go through again just to refresh what Shankaracharya's arguments are and how Srila Prabhupada refutes these arguments in this purport. Okay? So this will require some attention. And I would say is that if you can't fully understand everything, don't worry so much. So you have to read it a few times, many times, then theoretically it will make some sense. But eventually Srila Prabhupada writes in the beginning of the purport that it says, actually the explanation of the quadruple forms in the Vedic literature cannot be understood by the speculation of a conditioned soul. So with all our analytical ability, with all our research, we can't understand the quadruple expansion. Prabhupada says the quadruple forms should therefore be accepted just as they are described. The authority of the Vedas is such that even if one does not understand something by his limited perception, he should accept the Vedic injunction and not create interpretations to suit his imperfect understanding. And this is exactly what, who has done? Yes. In the Shariraka Bhashya, however, Shankaracharya has increased the misunderstanding of the monists by giving a very material explanation of the Chaturvyuha. And Prabhupada writes just one more line and say that the quadruple forms have a spiritual existence that can be realized in Vasudev Sattva, Shuddha Sattva, or unqualified goodness. That means in pure transcendence that is totally unaffected by even the mode of goodness in this world, which accompanies complete absorption in the understanding of Vasudeva. Why? Because they're enjoyers of the internal potency, the quadruple forms. And then Prabhupada says something really amazing. He says, basically the Mayavad commentators, right, what do? Thinking that the absolute personality of Godhead to be poverty-stricken or to have no potency, or in other words, to be impotent, is simply rascaldom. So what is the understanding of God from a Mayavad perspective? That God has no potency. Basically, He is like nothing. Right? He has no attributes, He has no quality, He has no Shakti. Right? He doesn't have any relationships. He's this undifferentiated oneness. And that's what Prabhupada calls it, impotent. That means we have derided God of any qualities, of any abilities. If we see in this world, so many people have incredible abilities. They're able to do so many things, manage so many things across the world, across the globe. And everything in the material world, although it's not without its problems, but they're able to do it with a lot of effectiveness. So if people with material abilities can do that, then why should we deny God that ability? And that if God takes a form, that means it's a material form. And that's why they don't regard these personal forms of God as transcendental. And so the first argument he puts forward, the first argument by Shankaracharya, that is in Sutra number 42. So he says that from Vasudev, who is the primary expansion? So Vasudev is the primary expansion of whom? Balaram. So he says, comes Sankarshan, Pradyumna and Aniruddha in that order. Another name, so this is according to Shankaracharya. So he equates Vasudeva as Paramatma, Sankarshan as the Jiva, the living entity, and Pradyumna as the mind, and Aniruddha as false ego. So his explanation is also not accepted by Rupa Goswami and our Vaishnava Acharyas. So according to Rupa Goswami and our Vaishnava Acharyas, so Sankarshan is not just Jiva, he is the origin of all Jivas. And he also is the presiding deity of the principle of ego. Okay. Whereas Shankaracharya, what he's done is that he's put Aniruddha as the presiding deity of the false ego. Whereas according to Rupa Goswami, Pradyumna is the presiding deity of intelligence, and Aniruddha is the presiding deity of the mind. Okay. So I'll make a picture of this so you can understand what Shankaracharya is equating the quadruple expansions with and what Rupa Goswami is explaining. Okay. So there's a difference.
And Prabhuji, how it is like whatever Shankaracharya is describing, how it's showing that these are material?
Okay, now I'll explain that. So he says that now this is Shankaracharya's logic. He says if Sankarshan is the jiva, and jiva is coming from whom? Vasudev. Okay. Now Vasudev has a form, which the Mayavadis consider what? Form to be? Material. Now you have according to them, jiva is eternal. Yes? Living entity, the Atma. So Atma is coming from a form. So that means that
The form is also material.
so that makes the living entity also temporary, non-eternal. If something is coming from something material, then it cannot be eternal. So according to him, if Sankarshan is coming from Vasudev and Sankarshan is the jiva, and Vasudev, because Vasudev has a form and form is material, so how can the eternal jiva come from material Vasudev or Vasudev's material form? So that would mean, according to him, that the jiva is also temporary. And if the jiva is temporary, then jiva has no chance of realizing their oneness or connecting with the Supreme Lord. Okay? So that is his argument number one. Is that making sense? Even if it makes no sense, then
This Vasudev, so Shankaracharya considered Vasudev as the expansion of Balram, but he considered him as material.
material, yes, he has a form.
Anyone having
So
form
anything that has a form for them is material. Because form means qualities, qualities means temporary and material.
So if we call them deity of, say, mind or intelligence or false ego, we are also considering them as material.
Why? Deity is not material. We are saying presiding, like presiding Lord, okay? Presiding Lord of the mind, presiding Lord of intelligence, presiding Lord of false ego.
But Prabhu, if they consider everything as a light or impersonal form, so how can they differentiate this is the presiding deity of mind, this is the presiding deity of whatever?
Yeah, so they also worship forms. It's not that the Mayavadis don't worship forms, but they use it as a stepping stone.
What kind of
So,
form? I mean,
no, so they will worship Krishna, but they consider Krishna not the ultimate, supreme, absolute truth. They feel Krishna is,
stepping stone.
it's a form influenced by the mode of goodness. Okay. So Krishna's form is influenced by the mode of goodness, and that's why Krishna has a form. So they will pray to Krishna, but
To reach
to go beyond him. Okay. Because ultimately these forms, whether it's Krishna, whether it's Rama, or whether it's Lord Shiva, for them, basically these are not the absolute truth. Okay.
So when they come to understanding is that means when they come to this material world, is it like that the form, the impersonal form takes a form in the material world only?
That's according to, you can say like that yes, for them, all these forms, they're transformations of the ultimate, supreme reality, which is undifferentiated, right? Which is complete oneness without any variety. And then when it is influenced by the mode of goodness, it takes a form, and they come in these form of avatars and this and that.
That
So
is why they say that their body is also material because
yes.
So if they want to go beyond Krishna, do they think that it is Nirakar, or still they feel that there is some Akar? There is Sakar. So Mayavadi thinks that everything is Nirakar, or they still think that after Krishna there is...
No, after Krishna, it is Nirakar.
Do they reach to Krishna? I mean, their highest
No, Krishna is not their goal. No?
No, they get stopped at Brahma Jyoti, no? They don't go beyond that.
No, so how can they go beyond that?
They
How can, because they don't even regard Krishna as, the authority. So there's no way they can go beyond, the Brahma Jyoti.
They consider Krishna as a material creation.
Yes.
So now what is the counter Prabhupada is giving?
Okay, now I'll also discuss a second argument, because both are interrelated. Now the second argument he makes is Sutra number 43. Right. He says, devotees think that Pradyumna, who is considered to represent the mind or the senses, has sprung from Sankarshan, who is considered to represent the living entities. So Sankarshan is representing the living entities, and Pradyumna, according to him, the senses and the mind. Right? So he says that Shankaracharya says that unless the devotees can show how ego and the means of knowledge or the senses can come from a person, such an explanation of the Vedanta Sutra cannot be accepted. So he says, can you show anywhere where a person is generating his own mind and senses? Do you have any example of any person, right, who is generating his own mind and senses? So he says, that's not possible. So his basic thing is that the Lord cannot expand into multiple expansions. Okay.
Slightly confused.
You are a living being. Right? Can you create your own mind and senses? So if you can't, then how is Sankarshan creating Pradyumna? How is Pradyumna coming from Sankarshan? Because if Pradyumna is, representing the senses and the mind, then how can you say that he's coming from Sankarshan? Because Sankarshan is a living entity, and you don't have any example. He says that unless the devotees can show how ego and the means of knowledge are the senses, okay, Gyanendriya, they are the senses, can be generated from a person. Unless you can show that, you can't show that. So for him, that means that Pradyumna cannot come from? No, from Sankarshan. And Sankarshan doesn't come from Vasudeva. Okay? So how does Prabhupada explain this? So first what he does is, he gives a general explanation from many different scriptures, especially the Laghu Bhagavatamrita, which is written by Rupa Goswami, different Puranas, and he also gives from the Pancharatra, Narada Pancharatra. So many different arguments he puts forward. And the primary thing that he's trying to explain before he starts to explain each argument of Shankaracharya, you'll see right after this explanation will come point number 1, point number 2, point number 3, point number 4 at the end. Okay? Where Prabhupada will explain specifically or give replies to those arguments. So what Prabhupada does is, last time we discussed that the nature of God is inconceivable. This we must understand, and we discussed this in great length last time, so I'll not discuss it. So basically, if we do not accept that God has Achinta Shakti, what does it mean, Achinta Shakti? That means the Lord has abilities that are not going to make sense to us. We cannot make sense of the Lord's abilities with our conditioned state or our conditioned mind, our conditioned intelligence. And that it is not possible to understand the Lord in our conditioned state. Okay. And so, the name of the Lord, God has many names, and one of his names is Adhokshaja. What does that mean?
We cannot understand him by our material senses.
Yeah, by material senses are not capable of understanding the Lord. And how should the Lord be accepted? We just read one purport by Prabhupada just in the beginning. How should the Lord be accepted? As written where?
In the scriptures.
Yeah, in the scriptures. Because if we try to interpret it, like many people, what do? They interpret, like Krishna means this and Pandavas mean that. They don't actually exist, but they represent the senses and someone represents the mind, and they give all these very, very interesting interpretations of even the Gita and the teachings in the Gita and the Mahabharata, and they just completely write it off as mythology, and they give all these amazing interpretations. And very logically they present. And everyone gets like, wow, this is so interesting, and wow, this is so interesting. And Prabhupada writes that before he wrote the Bhagavad Gita as it is, there's so many interpretations of the Bhagavad Gita. Even today, I was just reading that some devotees have written that on Amazon, Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita was not even within like the top 100 searches for the Gita in Amazon. So many interpretations of the Bhagavad Gita are there. And they have been trying to, I think by their efforts, what has happened now is that now the Bhagavad Gita as it is has come within the top 3. And they are trying to make it the top, like when you search for the Bhagavad Gita, then what will come up? As it is. And you see, when Prabhupada writes the introduction to the Bhagavad Gita, he says, main reason why I'm writing this is because so many different interpretations have been given. Written commentaries of the Bhagavad Gita that completely deny the supreme authority of Krishna. This is not a single one of them gives any credit to Krishna or accept his divinity. So he says, this is my goal. Right off if you read the first purport to the Bhagavad Gita, it's so amazing. I'll just read one line. Just 1 second. This is Bhagavad Gita. Slide 1. Chapter 1, verse 1. He says, Bhagavad Gita is the widely read theistic science summarized in the Gita Mahatmya. There it says that one should read Bhagavad Gita very scrutinizingly with the help of a person who is a devotee of Sri Krishna. How should we read the Bhagavad Gita? With the help of a person who is a devotee of Sri Krishna, and try to understand it without personally motivated interpretations. The example of clear understanding is there in the Bhagavad Gita itself, in the way the teaching is understood by Arjun. How did Arjun understand the Gita? That is the right way to understand the Bhagavad Gita. What was his understanding of Krishna?
Krishna is being accepted.
Yes, Param Brahma, right? Param Dhama. So, his understanding of Krishna is the way to understand the Bhagavad Gita. And he says, this is a specific standard of the Gita. So right in the beginning, he explains that how this Bhagavad Gita should be read, how should it be understood, and not, interpreted in the ways that many, you could say, scholars, many non-devotees have explained the Gita. There's so many people are writing so many commentaries on the Gita, even without practicing any spirituality. They're writing commentaries just because they're Sanskrit scholars, because they have analytical ability, they know various scriptures, they know philosophies, but can we understand the Gita by that? Will the Gita be revealed to us? No. So similarly, Prabhupada, again in these purports, by citing many different scriptures, he establishes that God is ultimately inconceivable. He has incredible potencies that are not going to make sense to us because we can't do it. We can't even imagine what God can do and what He's doing. That doesn't mean it's not possible for the Lord. And just because He has a form doesn't mean that He is limited. Even with His form, He has unlimited abilities. And His form is completely transcendental. That means it's beyond anything that we experience in this world. So this is all very, very, philosophical and technical, but it's very important to understand this Achinta Shakti of Krishna. Because many things that we will read, many things that we will encounter in this world, we cannot understand by logic. Just one thing. So, Hare Krishna. So in this world, like just when we see a seed of a banyan tree, when we see a seed of the banyan tree, do we think that it has the potency of turning into a huge tree? Can you just look at, can you tell by looking at that seed that it has this kind of potency? No. But that potency lies within that little seed. Hare Krishna Mataji. So if something even in this material world, like a little tiny seed, has so much potency to expand into such a huge, gigantic tree, that lives for hundreds and hundreds of years. So why do we deny God that inconceivable potency? And another thing that Prabhupada explains is that in the material world, one has to take help of something else to create something. Even if you're the best of scientists, if you're the best of carpenters, or best of creators of anything, whether it's a software, whether it's a hardware, whether it's any product. What do you need? Can you do it on your own? No matter how much intelligence you have to take help from something that is beyond you. Right? You have to get the ingredients. Right? You have to have a certain environment to manufacture that. Right? You have to have people to do it. So in the material world, everything has a cause and effect. So he gives an example that, for example, like you create, like a potter creates a pot. Right? And so to do that, what does he have to do? Yeah, he has to get an instrument, right? The potter's wheel. Then he has to get some clay. Then he has to have water. He has to have fire. He has to have so many things in order to do that. But the difference between material and spiritual form, right? Krishna's spiritual form, Krishna, because he is absolute, he doesn't need help from anyone outside to do anything. Do you see the difference? How does Krishna create? How does Krishna create? Yeah, from within, by his will. Just by his glance, he activates material elements. It's not that he has to, he has to go and, call someone, okay, come here, I need your help. Go and procure these materials. Right? Let's put them in this form, and then, we'll work hard for few years and activate these material elements, and then, the earth would be, this universe would be created. And no, just by his will. In fact, Krishna, it's explained, he doesn't even get into creation. I don't know if you caught this verse. There's one verse in the, we read, that verse number 29 of this chapter, where it's explained that Krishna's dharma, what is his dharma? Is his dharma to, create and maintain and expand, and what's his dharma? Yeah. It's explained that his dharma is krida, Lila krida. So he's just pastimes of play. And his expansion as Balaram, who further expands into the Chaturvyuha, they perform all these activities. So now let's go to the first, how Srila Prabhupada refutes the first argument. Okay. So he says, in commenting on Vedanta Sutra 2.42, Sripad Shankaracharya has claimed that Sankarshan is a jiva, an ordinary living entity. But there is no evidence in any Vedic scripture that devotees of the Lord have ever said that Sankarshan is an ordinary living entity. This, in my book, it's 465, but I don't know in your book.
First one, point number one.
Point number one. What's the page number on your book?
478.
478. Okay. 478 right at the bottom. You see number one on the left? Huh? So he says, where is it written that Sankarshan is a jiva? He is an infallible plenary expansion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the Vishnu category, and he is beyond the creation of material nature. He is the original source of the living entities. Okay. So there, the first argument is refuted. That he is calling Sankarshan just an ordinary jiva. what are we studying?
Second expansion.
Yeah, so he's completely transcendental. 1 plus 1? 1. Right? So Krishna is manifesting himself in the form of Lord Balaram, who is further manifesting himself in the form of Sankarshan. Right? Who's further expanding himself into the Chaturvyuha, and in that Chaturvyuha, he's personally Sankarshan. Okay? And he is also Mahasankarshan. In the second. Yes. So therefore he is Vibhu Chaitanya, the greatest. He is directly the cause of the cosmic manifestation and the infinitesimal living entities. Okay, so he is the source of all the living entities. So he's not just a jiva, but he's the source. And he's completely transcendental. Okay. And in the second argument, Prabhupada again says that it's not that you have to show that the jiva creates his senses and only then, we can say that one comes from another. He's saying that all these forms, they are transcendental, just as a flame transformed from one flame acts like the original. So the Vishnus who emanate from Mool Sankarshan are as good as the original Vishnu. Okay.
Like the candle.
Yes, he gives the example of the candle. That all these expansions, they are equally potent. They're equally transcendental. And none of them should be considered material or limited in any way. Okay. Everyone's very confused. Huh? Yes. So don't worry about. And so his third and fourth arguments. His third argument is that if God expands into many gods, then that means there is no God. Okay. If God is expanding into many godlike forms, that means it negates, one without a second. This whole concept that God is one without a second. That means there's no second person to God. Right? Yeah. So he's saying, then it negates that assertion that God is one without a second. Because you're creating so many gods. Or God is creating so many gods. And his last argument is that God's qualities cannot be transcendental. Right? We say God is full in 6 opulences. So he says qualities, when it comes to quality means material. So he says that God's 6 opulences or qualities, they cannot be transcendental. Okay. So that's his fourth argument. So that means that, God cannot have these 6 qualities. He cannot have these opulences. So he denies God those opulences. So then when we say that, so basically this is his third and fourth argument, and Srila Prabhupada writes that, so let's look at the third one. In reply to the commentary of Shankaracharya on the 44th aphorism, it may be said that no pure devotee strictly following the principles of Pancharatra will ever accept the statement that all the expansions of Vishnu are different entities, for this idea is completely false. So are you getting this point? That there is nowhere in scripture where devotees, pure devotees, will ever accept that all these forms of God, right, they are different entities. They are the one same entity manifesting in different forms. Yes or no?
Yes, Prabhuji.
So why not? Right? Why is it so hard to accept that? Why can't God expand in different forms?
Prabhupada has supported his commentary with every time with his scriptures,
Yes.
So, do these Mayavadis also have some sort of background?
Yes, they have. But their interpretation, they, like for example, it's said in the scripture, there are many verses that says that God has no form.
So they have
They-
taken that part.
So they have taken that and they say, look, God, it's saying God has no form. But then Vaishnav Acharyas would say, God has no form means God has no material form. We accept that God has no material form. But how can you deny him his spiritual form?
So they also support their philosophy with that, but then it's just bits and parts they have just taken
Yes,
from the scriptures only.
yes.
In fact, from Bhagavad Gita 12th chapter 1st shloka, Ramcharitmanas.
They have taken many verses, but if we comprehensively study, right, like say for example Gita, you can take one or two verses and show that your God is impersonal. But what about so many verses that show the personality of God or assert the personal form of God as the highest? Krishna makes so many statements about himself being the supreme truth. So how will you accept that? Now you just take one shloka and you say, no, look what he's saying over here. But what about all the other, 50 or so many shlokas that he's said, or 50 or more shlokas that he's revealing his divine and you could say his supreme status. We want to accept that. Nor will we accept how to understand the process of understanding Krishna, where Krishna makes it very clear that you can only understand me through bhakti. So Krishna's divinity is denied, the process is denied, everything is denied.
It seems they didn't go beyond that.
So because for many people, to form itself is painful. If the supreme form of the Lord is pure, eternal bliss and full of knowledge and full of, it's eternal. But we see in this world forms, they end up in, they end up being causes of misery. Our body, causes so much misery. Other bodies cause misery for us. Other people's bodies.
That is their neti. So,
Yeah, so they say, can't be this, can't be that, can't be this. It has to be something beyond this form that causes so much anxiety and stress and pain and illusion. So for them, form itself is illusory. Form ultimately is not the ultimate reality. Okay. It should be noted that the Bhagavad school accepts the quadruple forms of Narayan, but that does not mean it accepts many gods. Devotees know perfectly well that the absolute truth, the supreme personality of Godhead, is one without a second. They are never pantheists, worshippers of many gods, for this is against the injunction of the Vedas. So what do the devotees accept? They accept the inconceivable proprietorship of various transcendental potencies. Therefore, Prabhupada says, we therefore recommend that scholars consult the Laghu Bhagavad Amrita of Srila Rupa Goswami, where these ideas are explicitly stated. And then he goes on and on, explaining more and more. And again, he uses these beautiful verses from Isha Upanishad and many other scriptures, Upanishads. So, okay. And in the fourth argument, he says that some say that the transcendence must be void of all qualities because qualities are manifested only in matter. Okay? But this is not acceptable. Since the Supreme Personality of Godhead is absolute, His qualities are also non-different from Him. And please hear this. His form, name, qualities and everything else pertaining to Him are as spiritual as He is. Even qualitative expansion of the absolute personality of Godhead is identical with Him. Okay? So Krishna's form, His name, His pastimes, they are non-different from Him because He is absolute. Okay? So Krishna's qualities are non-different from Him. It's not that they are material. They're completely spiritual. And you can read the rest of the purport, but basically these are the principal arguments that... so we understand first, in general, that God is inconceivable. He has inconceivable abilities, inconceivable potencies, inconceivable qualities, which with our material minds we cannot understand. Okay? This is the first basic principle. This is a general principle when we study scripture. And how do we understand God? From the scripture itself. Where does scripture come from? From the Supreme Lord Himself. So whatever is described there has to be accepted. That's why Prabhupada says Bhagavad Gita as it is. And that the difference between material and spiritual is that in the material realm, everything has cause and effect. Whereas in the spiritual realm, just by Krishna's will, everything is happening. So these are two general principles. And the third thing is that all contradictions, because God is inconceivable, all contradictions also exist or are, you could say, are explained by God's Achinta Shakti. So what are some of the contradictions that we see in the Lord? What are some of the contradictions we read last time?
Smallest but greatest at the same time.
Yes. What else?
He's
Yes, he has form and he's also formless.
and very close to us and yet
He's very far, right? He's impartial, yet he's partial. Right? He has the color of a bluish, blackish cloud, right? But he's colorless. He has many qualities, but those qualities are what? They're transcendental. Krishna is completely satisfied, yet he marries 16,000 wives. So it doesn't make sense to the material mind. And that's why Rupa Goswami says, Ata Shri Krishna Nam Adi Na Bhave Grahyam Indriye. With these material senses we cannot, na graham, cannot understand, cannot perceive. Whose? Ata Shri Krishna Nam Adi. His names, his forms, his pastimes cannot be understood. But how do we understand? Yes, Sevam Mukhihi Jivado. When we serve, the Lord, starting with our senses, then the reality of God is revealed. Swayam, certainly it says. Swayam evam spurati adha. The understanding of the God of the Lord will be revealed to us. And this is the whole process of bhakti. Yasya deve para bhakti yatha deve tatha guru. So when we have faith, in the Lord and a spiritual master, then tasyati. Then what will happen? All these descriptions, kathita hi arthaya, all these meanings of, all these descriptions that we are hearing, right? Then prakashante na mahatma. So they are prakashante, they are revealed to this great soul who has equal faith in the words of the Lord and his spiritual master or her spiritual master. And Prabhupada quotes this several times. Last weekend I gave this talk I think someone posted it in our group. If you read that, then Prabhupada reveals this in all the key pastimes. He quotes the same verse and he writes almost the same line. Right? What is the secret of success in spiritual life? In the pastime of Lord Chaitanya with his spiritual master, in the pastime of the Brahmana who was reading the Gita incorrectly outside the Ranga Mandir in South India. And then in the pastime of Mrigari, right? Then right in the beginning of the Bhagavatam, describing the qualities of Suta Goswami. So Suta Goswami's qualities, when they're being described, same purport comes again. So this purport is being repeated wherever these amazing transformations are taking place. And then in the Gita itself, in verse number 4.34, again Prabhupada writes the same thing. And Bhagavatam, you'll find almost in every canto, you'll find the same. The secret of success, this phrase comes. And what is it? Is to make one's life, right, the words of the spiritual master and the Lord. And to completely be driven by that and make all our effort to please Guru and Krishna by following their instructions with sincerity, with honesty and seriousness. And then everything else Krishna takes care of. So in the next few verses, he's going to enumerate some further qualities of Mahasankarshan. And he explains that, like from verses 42 to 47. So he further explains the identity, the opulences, and also the role of Mahasankarshan. So if you read these verses, so we hear that Mahasankarshan is the shelter of the spiritual energy. Right? So basically, all the 6 attributes, know for certain they are manifestations of the opulence of Sankarshan. And the jiva, right, Mahasankarshan is the shelter of all the jivas. And he is the original shelter of the Purusha. What does that mean? That means he is the source of the Purusha avatar. The original Purusha is Karana Dakshaya Vishnu. Okay. From whom this world is created and whom it is dissolved. He is the shelter of everything. He is wonderful in every respect. And his opulences are infinite. Even Ananta cannot describe his glory. Let us recite verse number 47, 48. Okay. Sarva ashraya sarva bhuta aishwarya para Ananta kohite nare mahimaya janhara. Turya Vishuddha Sattva Sankarshana Nama Tinho Janra Amsa Shai Nityananda Rama. So one more time this is the concluding verse of the description of Sankarshan. Okay. Turya Vishuddha Sattva Sankarshana Nama Tinho Yanra Amsa Shai Nityananda Rama. That Sankarshan, who is transcendental pure goodness, is a partial expansion of Nityananda Balaram. So remember last time we discussed that how he's going to explain the glories, and then when it comes to the end, he's going to say, who is this glorious personality that we just discussed? Who is he? He is a partial expansion of Nityananda Balaram. And then when he's going to discuss Mahavishnu, Karana Dakshaya Vishnu, he's explain all the glories of Mahavishnu. And then he'll say, do you know who he is? Yeah, he's the expansion of the expansion of whom? Nityananda Balaram. So like this, he's going to glorify each one, right? And conclude by reminding us who this great personality is. And why does he do this? To establish the unlimited glories of Lord Nityananda. Imagine how great Lord Nityananda is, from whom Sankarshan is coming. Right? From Sankarshan, Karana Dakshaya Vishnu is coming. From him, Garbho Dakshaya Vishnu is coming. From him, Shiro Dakshaya Vishnu is coming. And they're doing some incredible things which we cannot even fathom. I was just reading, something really interesting, that even in the material universe, when you talk about matter itself, there's dark matter, which forms a great portion of this universe, which no one knows anything about. And you know what percent that is?
99.
It's about 96%. Now just think, right, that this material universe, 96%, I think I just want to make sure that I'm giving you the right figures, because I don't know much anything about cosmology and all this, but I was just reading just to understand that what is the nature of this universe. And so I was reading about all this dark matter and this and that, and I was thinking, wow, it's all going over my head. But then when I saw this statistic, that wow, such almost everything is inconceivable. It's all a mystery. With all our scientific evolution and progress, what do we really know even about matter? What to talk about the source of all matter? So, and I was reading that before, scientists used to think that there were only 200 billion galaxies. Only 200 billion galaxies. Right? But you know how much? Now they have revised their figure to how much? Take a guess. Huh? Yeah, 2 trillion, galaxies.
This is based on mental speculation.
No, this is what they've observed with their,
Telescope.
yeah.
But how can trillion galaxies?
I don't know how do they base that. We have to find out. Uh,
They call it observable universe.
yes.
Apart from that, there is non-observable, which we don't know.
Which is 96%.
In a small atom also, 99% is the space. Only, I think 1% or something is a matter, electron. In each and every atom, 99% is space, which we don't know.
So together, dark matter and dark energy account for almost 95% of the universe, highlighting how much of the cosmos remains mysterious. Hare Krishna. And then when it comes to God, वो तो मेरे हाथों में है ना? उसको कौन नहीं जानता? अरे So we can understand that it's not, understanding God is not such a cheap thing. And only God can help us understand Himself. And how is He doing it? He's doing it, by mercifully endowing that potency in His pure devotees, in the holy name. And especially in this age, His supremely magnanimous nature. We are so, unfortunate, so lazy, so unintelligent. He makes Himself completely accessible through His ultimate merciful form, the holy name. And that holy name is endowed with all the potency to reveal this mystery of the Supreme Lord. This inconceivable mystery of the Supreme Lord. So it's there right here. Yes, the Lord is in our hands. The potential is there. The source is here. God is, but how attentive we can be, how seriously we can take this form. This is the ultimate success of our lives. So thank you very much for hearing patiently, and if you have any realizations or questions you'd like to share, share. Hare Krishna to all the devotees online. Vishnu Charan Prabhu, Prashant Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you so much for such a beautiful class. Especially the contradictions part was very beautiful. That how Lord is inconceivable. But thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu.
Prabhu, I have one question.
Yes.
So, in the expansion of Vasudev, Sankarshan, Pradyumna and Narad, they are being attributed as false ego man, ankar, knowledge. So both Mayavadi and we both consider those attributes as it is, or
No, there's a difference, right? We said. You're talking about Sankarshan,
yes.
right? But they also consider himself an ordinary jiva, which is not right. Right? And they are equating Aniruddha with the false ego. They're not equating Sankarshan with the false ego or ego. So there's some technical differences. And I would say that don't worry about it. Main thing is that what we discussed, that they are completely transcendental, and their existence doesn't deny the supremacy of the Lord. Right? It's not that the Lord becomes less. The Lord has inconceivable potency, so He can manifest in different forms. And these forms, they have particular functions and they have particular roles that they play. Just like, like how the government runs, the different departments, the different people who are in charge, ministry of this, ministry of that, then there are individual, leaders in every ministry, and under them there are, more leaders. And so we can get a sense of that. Of course, this is on a material level, but there is also spiritual expansion and role playing and and Lila that goes on. So,
Prabhupada says that 1 + 1 is 1 and
yes. So this concept we understand, 1 + 1 doesn't mean, gods become many gods. It's the same God, performing different functions and Leelas. Yes, Mataji had raised a hand. I told her to just wait a little bit. Yes.
We say everything in the material world is a perverted reflection of what is there in the spiritual world. So is Mayavad also a reflection, perverted reflection of something in the spiritual world? Or, in other words, we say Lord Buddha, he came with the ideology of Shunyavad and Shankaracharya with Mayavad. So it's their own creations. When Krishna sent them to create this thing, or these were already there?
So one thing is that who's behind every creation? Where are they getting the ability from? Even to present Mayavad philosophy, you need Krishna's blessings. No? It's not possible. So Shankaracharya also is an empowered incarnation of Lord Shiva. With a particular purpose he came. So if we understand the purpose, then things make more sense. Because at that time, according to time, place and circumstances, he came with a particular purpose to draw people again to the Vedic literatures. Because many people, what they were doing in the name of Vedic literatures, they were doing all these animal sacrifices and things that were bringing discredit to our Vedas. Just like even with Vaishnavism. After Lord Chaitanya went in 200 years, after his disappearance, Vaishnavism had deteriorated into some really sentimental cult. Sahajya. And then, we had these great acharyas who came and restored it back. Who gave us a real understanding of Vaishnavism and really established very scripturally, very analytically, very logically Vaishnavism and upheld its purity, its supreme status.
Sutra number 43, Shankaracharya says only if a person is able to produce the mind and the intelligence
And the senses, yes.
then I accept it. But doesn't he accept this, that person only is creating another person?
Yeah, so he says you can't, person can't create, so that means it can't. It's not possible.
But biologically, one living entity becomes the birth of, becomes
Yeah, but can you do it on your own? You need the help of someone else.
So what Mayavadi accepts is that material people, material
when we talk about material world, this is energetic. It has energy to do different things. Maybe with the help of something or the other. But when it comes to the creator, he doesn't have any energy. Because जैसे आपने banyan tree का example दिया,
Yes.
तो शंकराचार्य को भी पता है, right?
Yes.
Out of the seed, the entire tree is coming. तो वो उसकी potency accept कर रहे हैं, but the creator of the seed, he is not accepting the potency of the creator.
No, so he is accepting the creator being completely spiritual, devoid of any material potency. Not able to, like when we see variety in this world, right, he attributes God with no variety. Right?
No variety, no energy. So then, what does
No,
it
energy, there's spiritual energy, but that energy is basically inert. Like there's no interaction, there's no relationships, there's nothing. It's just pure, energy.
But that
Just-
pure white light created this entire
Colorful
manifestation.
material world.
Yes, so when that pure light, right, and we are also part of that pure light, when we come under the Maya, then all these forms and all these are created, varieties created. That is due to the influence of Maya, which we will discuss in the next section. So when this pure living entity is influenced by Maya, then it gets a material form, and then there is all this variety and pain in this material world. So-called pain and pleasures and this and that. All these dualities, they arise because of this influence of Maya. Okay. So that pure energy, spiritual energy, devoid of any qualities, when it is influenced by Maya, then it manifests like this. Okay.
Prabhuji, when we talk about qualities of Krishna, they are 64 in number, and then Vishnu has less and Lord Ram has less. What about the quadruple form? They have all 64 qualities. They are at the same platform.
They manifest less qualities. So I'm forgetting the real percentage, I think 90 something.
But they are less
And-
than Vishnu.
Because
Vishnu Tattva is like
94.
94, 93 point something, so 94, something like that.
So they have the
What I
potential.
loved in the purport
Sorry.
is
Huh?
Prabhupada is so respectful towards he's quoting as His Holiness Sripad Shankaracharya.
Yes.
He's so respectful. That's what I really love. Prabhupada is not putting him down because definitely, as you said, that he came for a purpose.
Yes.
And the language, if you read, after reading, my respect for Prabhupada increased.
No, so there's a mix. Right? So sometimes there's also like rascaldom, there's that. So he does. So basically, Prabhupada, he doesn't deride anyone personally. But what he does is he really attacks the philosophy.
And the other
So this was if you read all his, even in the beginning, he respects, the demigods and he respects the, in some places he even says, don't consider these Mayavadis, they're also very spiritual.
sometimes
So-
they demean, and
No, so we should be very careful that there is a difference between philosophy and the person. In the sense that, like there's a saying, you hate the sin but not the sinner. So what we are against is this kind of philosophy that derides the Supreme Lord.
And even Sukha Mataji, she always points out, she says, it's not that impersonalism is only, outside. She says that even within the devotee community.
Yeah, there's a lot of impersonalism.
Even within our relationship. So she calls herself as a recovering impersonalist.
Yes, we all are. See, we all have that disease.
Of
Yes.
impersonalism. So we cannot put them down all the time because sometimes we might be treating some persons as
Yes.
not existing. Or
That's what we.
just
Most of the time, what do? We choose to ignore all the pains and miseries of this world. Just keep it at bay. उसके साथ ऐसा हुआ है ना, just leave it. Then when it happens with us, then we feel a little pain. Hmm?
This Shankaracharya ji also at the end of his pastime, he's mentioned about Bhaj Govindam, and then he in the Sutra 42 he says that devotees think that the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vasudev Sri Krishna to be one, to be free from material qualities and
And he accepts that.
and he
Yeah.
accepts that.
Yeah.
So like.
But then, like, his followers, they give different interpretations even of, this Bhaja Govinda. If you read, I read one explanation, I almost fell out of the chair. I couldn't believe that someone could write an interpretation like this. I was shocked, like, just completely denying that he's actually worshipping Govinda.
That Mool Mate worships Govinda. I mean, something just reverse of
Something completely contrary, he is giving a interpretation of that. So followers go even a step higher, So they
like Prabhu, you said in the beginning, Gita itself people interpret in a very different way. That could also be. The Shankaracharya, when he came in, was a very different time, Samaya Kal, where he was trying to establish Sanatana Dharma again. So probably he had to do certain, but he never refuted God as such.
Yes. Yes, Vishnu Charan Prabhu, you have your hand raised.
Yes, Prabhuji, a little question was coming in my mind that sometimes we get a little fortunate to get Vaishnavas Association, Mercy of Lord, Mercy of Gurudev. Prabhuji, how we should understand it, or what practice we should do more to not take this association or mercy very cheaply? Just wanted to understand this.
Yes, we should hear more, right? How rare this is, and how great this is, and how inconceivable it is, this mercy. And that despite our choice to be in this material world and try to enjoy in so many different ways, in so many different lifetimes, now this lifetime we're getting this chance. We're getting this mercy. So, what should we do with it? So, more we hear scripture, and the more we hear how devotees, our acharyas, they value all these blessings and this mercy from our scriptures, and even from there are many devotees that are living, that are such great examples. How they treasure this mercy, and how they worship this mercy, and how they respond to this mercy. It's so wonderful to see them. So we should take that inspiration.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Yes, Prashant Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare
Thank
Krishna.
you for the very wonderful and intellectual talk. Prabhuji, my question is that, as you have mentioned, that science has changed its statement maybe after a year, 2 years, or many years, but they ultimately, they are not fixed. Like you have said that earlier they said that there are 2 billion
200 billion, yes.
200 million galaxies. Now they are saying that there are 200 trillion, I think.
2
So
trillion.
my question
yes.
is that when we read Bhagavad Gita and scriptures, they tell about, they give us knowledge of ourselves, what is mind, what is intelligence, and more importantly, what is soul. And they tell us about our, even the human psychology. For example, Bhagavad Gita is, we have seen that it tells about that how anger triggers, what is the reason of anger, and what is the conclusion of being angry. And so simply, we perceive these things, we realize these things, these things are true, and we have practiced the methods of scriptures, or more importantly, the devotional science, like chanting and everything, and we have kind of realization that it has a a very good potency of transforming human heart and improving or evolving oneself into a more human
Yes.
or a devotee of a Lord. Uh, and on the other hand, material science, we see that they are after these topics, but they don't have the well explained reasons. Like they don't have any. They have some explanation, but these are vague. Like does soul exist or not exist? How mind functions? They give us something about psychology. But when we see that they are aggressively after exploring this universe, cosmos, they give us knowledge about moon, sun, and earth. So there is conflict between very because they are searching these things by uh, the technology, by the equipments, by the like all the science and technology. But there is a conflict that how Vedas explain the Vedic cosmos and how science is explaining. But they always they give us evidences like moon photographs, sun photographs, and lots of analysis in science has been given. So how to digest it? Because like whether we should a way to understand this also that the way the science is advancing, or we should simply because it's very hard to reject.
Yes.
How
So there are
perceive
many devotees who have written, who are working in the scientific field, and they are assimilating whatever the scientists are saying or discovering with what has been said in the Shastras. And interestingly, they're finding that whatever science is discovering is conforming to what the Shastras are saying. Like, for example, if you read this book, it's called The Big Bang and the Sages. Okay. So you'll see that a lot of the timelines that are described in Vedic literatures, right? Now science is also coming to that kind of conclusion. Okay. But you'll have to read that book. This is like, I'm not qualified to speak about these subjects because I don't even have like maybe 1% scientific mind. so, so you need someone who has an interest in science. But there are many devotees who've written many books. Srila Prabhupada's disciples and then their disciples, they're writing many, many wonderful scientific books. So you should read those if you have interest. I'll send you a link to a course that they're starting. It's on consciousness. You can do that course and you can understand that actually science, even after so many years, they don't know anything about consciousness. Whereas our scriptures have been speaking about consciousness for so many.
courses are needs commitment, but I prefer reading books so that
Yeah.
I can read them
Okay.
anytime.
So you read these books. I'll send you some links to these books. Okay?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
So thank you all very much for now. Just one last session we'll have next, which will be a little philosophical, and after that it'll be